Good afternoon, everyone. Last meeting we've discussed or we've tackled about the journalism, the common media forms, and how to be media literate. So now let us go deeper on the history of journalism in the world. Okay. So first, we have here our learning objectives. At the end of the lesson, learners will be able to know the history of journalism in the world, specifically describe the characteristics of journalism before and after the printing press, and compare the changes and developments that have occurred in the field of journalism throughout history. Okay, first we have to describe the characteristic of journalism before and after the printing press. And of course, compare the changes and developments that have occurred in the field of journalism throughout history, or we are going to discuss the developments that had happened during the history of journalism. Okay. So first, we're going to talk about the journalism before the printing press, or what is journalism? What is journalism before the printing press? Okay, so we have to tackle about, or we're going to discuss about the era where we began to speak, we write, or the era of the Greeks, the era of the Romans, the Chinese, and the journalism from China to Korea, and of course the news of Europe. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the era when we speak around 100 BC. Okay, around 100 BC, before Christ, human language arrived in the species of Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens is referring to us humans, or to the humans during or around 100,000 BC. Okay, so this allows us to communicate to other people. Okay, to communicate to other people using the words of mouth. Okay, we're not using nonverbal, or I mean the humans or people during these times aren't using nonverbal, are not only using nonverbal but also verbal communication. Okay, 40 in the 40,000 BC setting, in the setting of Americas. Okay, in the setting of Americas, news spread by words of mouth. Okay, during the 8,000 BC, agriculture and stable civilization bring common meeting places, travel, messengers, smoke signals, drums, and etc. Okay, during the 8,000 BC, okay, there happens the civilization regarding agriculture. Okay, stable civilization on agriculture that let people meet in common places. The other people, or the people in this year meet in a common meeting places. Okay, they meet in common meeting places to share or talk about or share to other people the happenings on the place they came from, or what is going on their places. Okay, they travel from place to from one place to one another. Okay, and serve as messengers of news. Okay, so next is the era where we humans began to write. In 3,100 or 3,100 BC, tablets, the oldest known writing system, developed in Mesopotamia. Okay, so tablets, here is an example of tablet. Okay, the oldest known writing system. So this is how human writes before. Okay, before the printing press. Okay, developed in Mesopotamia. Symbols represent words. So an example of this is a cuneiform. Okay, so as we can see, there are symbols here in this tablet, right? These symbols are the words of humans before. Okay, so that is their language actually. So in 1500 BC, the first alphabets developed by, or was developed by, the Canaanites. So this is the example of the alphabet developed by Canaanites. Okay. So in the 1400s and 1300s, the Aramana letters, 350 tablets, show correspondence between Egypt and its representatives in Canaan and Amuru states. Okay, so this is the Aramana letters. Oh, okay, so it is a correspondence between Egypt and representatives in Canaan. So there are connection between the Canaanites and the Egyptians, okay, to create the Aramana letters. Okay, so let's move on to the era of the Greeks. So what the Greeks had and contributed the on the journalism before the printing press. Okay, in 1200 BC, we have here, excuse me, We have here writing of the Homers, the Iliads, and Odyssey recount war with Troy. So it says here the writing of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. We've known that Iliad and Odyssey is recorded as the oldest story or oldest book. Okay, in our record. Okay, so in 750 BC, Greeks add vowels to the alphabet. Okay, from the Greeks, they've added vowels to our alphabet. In 430 BC, Socrates tells news of the Battle of Potidaea in the Athens Gymnasium and received us to the state of politics and philosophy. So we can see here that Socrates tells news in the Athens Gymnasium. So it means that news is actually spreading before the printing press through words of mouth. Okay, so news are still or have begun spreading. Okay, during this time. In the 334 BC, Alexander the Great sends news to the Athens via or through his 300 Persian shields of his defeat of the Persians. Okay, so another news being sent by Alexander the Great of his defeat of the Persians. Okay, so news had happened or had spread during these times where um, Alexander is the sender of this news to the Athens. Okay, through his 300 Persian shields. Excuse me. So we can see the use of news these days. Okay, through these times, right? So moving on to the Romans, okay, the era of the Romans. In 59 BC, Julius Caesar orders public posting of the Acta, Journa Populi, and Journa Urbana in Latin, daily records of the events in the Senate and the Roman Republic. This posting could be copied for the news spread by word of mouth. So we can see that word of mouth is or was their use of spreading news. Okay, while in the Senate or in the Roman Republic, of course, they've used this. Okay, acta. In the 51 BC, Cicero received letters and copies of the Acta from Salius, a Roman politician, while serving as proconsul of Cilicia in Asia Minor. So this is the map of the Asia Minor, okay? So we've seen or we can see the distance in these places, okay, from Asia to Asia Minor to Rome, of course. Um, from the distance of places, okay, we can see the distance that is that serves as a barrier to that news spreading. But still, Cicero receives the letters and the copies of Acta, meaning journalism or news is spreading during those times is a proof that journalism exists before the printing press using the word of mouth. Okay, still. And of course, we have here the Chinese in 105 AD or Anno Domini, okay, the year of our Lord. Chinese invented paper. Okay, so this during this time, Chinese invent paper through rags, tree barks. Okay, however, it took more than 1,000 years to reach Europe. Of course, because during these days, people are experiencing difficulty in transportation. Of course, because they are using only horses or walking during these days. Okay, so um, it could be that there are paper during these days, or Chinese had invented paper. Okay, but still there is a difficulty in spreading the news because of the distance. Okay, during the 2000 or I mean 221 AD Han Dynasty creates Chinese Empire and uses a robust news system of Tipao. Okay, so this is an example of Tipao, similar to Rome's Acta, although included as a newsletter for official and elites. Okay, so this newsletters, this Tipao, is being used only for officials and elites, meaning the lower estate or lower people didn't isn't using this. Okay, so only the officials and the elites uses the tipa. Okay, in 618 AD, okay, black printing invented in China using hand carved wood blocks and was used to print the tipa. So um here in this during this 618 AD, they've created or they've invented this block printing to print the tipao instead of using other um, forms. Okay, so we have here China to Korea. Okay, from China in 950. Okay, it says here in 1241, printing arrived in Korea from China by 950 AD. Okay, so during the 950 AD, the printing from China, the printing from China had reached Korea. So in 1241, Korean makes the first successful movable type of metal. If the Koreans had created or invented the hand carved wood blocks, okay, this is the wood block printing, okay, the Koreans had invented the metals, okay, the first successful movable type of metal. Okay, so let's move on to the news of Europe. So news have been spreading throughout these years. Okay, so that is how journalism happens before the printing press. In 1431, Joan of Arc burned at the stake. So these are news, okay? News in Europe. News before the printing press is so unreliable that people are not certain if she is even dead. Why? It is because they are using words of mouth to spread the news. So it is really, or it is so unreliable. Okay, that is how journalism before the printing press is differs to the journalism after printing press, of course, because they're not um going to use words of mouth, but they're going to write it. Okay, so there is a little reliability, okay, of the news being spread. In 1432, a detailed account of Henry IV's entry in London is composed and written in verse. This is it, the detailed account of Henry IV's um, entry in London. Okay, so it was written in verse. Okay, written. In 1450, we have here at last the development of the letterpress used by Johann Gutenberg. Okay, so this is the first letterpress invented by and used by Johann Gutenberg. So that's it, the journalism before the printing press. So take note that the journalism before printing press or news before the printing press is or was spread by word of mouth, okay, verbally spread, okay, verbally. So there is no use of paper. Um, yes, they are not using what we're using today digitally. Okay, so news spread difficult in a difficult way. Okay, so it is not easy to spread news during the or during these days before the printing press. Okay, so that's it. In 1450, the development of the letterpress.
The rise of professional journalism from the printing press to the digital age. So here we can see the highlights from the printing press to the digital age. So let us start with the printing press. So Johann Gutenberg invents the printing press in 1450 AD, and of course is the one to use this printing press. So he printed 200 copies and sold at the Frankfurt Book Fair for an equivalent of 3 years' pay for the average clerk. So maybe you are asking, what is this printing press? So in this PowerPoint, we can see the image of the printing press. So the printing press is a machine in which text and images are transferred from movable type of paper or other media by means of ink. So in 1493, Christopher Columbus returns from America, and word of his adventures spreads via uh, printed reproductions of his own letter. So in 1620, we have the first newspaper in English printed in Amsterdam, and tinawag nilang Dutch Coranto. So, because of the printing press, news about the New World spread much more rapidly. And of course, the printing press give birth to mass media and changed the world. And the printing press fostered literacy and the spread of ideas and information into the hands of the growing audience. So, the news in the rise. So, in 1624, advertising appears in an English newspaper which was published by Nathaniel Butter and Nicholas Byrne. So, in here we can see what would be the economic model that would drive journalism even into the present day. And of course, now with the digital media. So, in 1626, the newspaper called the continuation of weekly news of our in England printed correction, and we see an acknowledgement that readers were relying on these news sources for accurate information. So in 1650, the oldest surviving daily newspapers in Germany was published, and the Oxford Gazette was published in England in 1655 as the first official journal of record and the newspaper of the crown. So the Oxford Gazette later became the London Gazette, which is still published as court journal containing records of honors, appointments, public notices. So in 1690, we had the first American newspaper, which was called the Public Occurrences. So this Public Occurrences was published for only one issue by Benjamin Harris. So this was the first newspaper issued in North America. So the content focused on local news. So as we move on to the period of 1765 to 1776, we can see that the England and colonies are or were in a great conflict, a time in which the sparks of revolution were growing hotter by the day. So England was trying to impose taxes and laws like the Stamp Act of Townshend, which is an act to stop the spread of the revolutionary ideas. And in response to the colonists, uh, they participated in the Boston Tea Party. So in 1777, France published its first daily newspaper, and the Benjamin Town published America's first daily newspaper, which was called the Pennsylvania Evening Post. And that was in 1783. So Pennsylvania Evening Post presented the first newspaper printing of the newly adopted Declaration of Independence. So most Americans read or heard the words Declaration of Independence via or through newspaper and also printed broadsides. So the French Revolution begins in 1789 due to the false report that 30,000 troops of the French began to slaughter citizens in a section of Paris. So now we can see that the development of the journalism was revolutionary, not just for democratic societies but also for a number of groups that were previously marginalized. So this new wave of journalism in the spread of information brought a rise to new opportunities for other voices to be added to social conversations. So more news, more voices, of course. So in 1814, the first steam engine is used to print the Times of London, and the output increases from 250 to 1,100 sheets per hour. So yun, mabilis. And the first American, the first African American newspaper, which was called Freedom's Journal, was published in 1827. So in 1828, we had the first Native American newspaper, which was called the Phoenix. So in 1830, we have also the Goddess Ladies Book, the most circulated magazine that was published, and this book was the first successful women's publication. So the content of this women's or of this book is of course women's issues. So in 1830, we had another monumental period in the development of journalism, and this was the era of the penny press. So the invention of the penny press in the 19th century gave working class Americans their own newspapers, and along the way created tabloid journalism and investigative reporting. So Benjamin Day launches the New York Sun, the first penny paper in 1833. So it has a large audience, or it attracted a large reader. So the first penny paper, the Sun, was founded, of course, in the New York. After that time, newspapers became nonpartisan since they were not supported by political parties. So we had papers like the Public Ledger in Philadelphia in 1836, the Baltimore Sun in 1837, and again, mass production and the steam engine is what made this possible for the printing press to pump out such high volume newspapers. So this includes the topic like commerce, trade, and high politics, and more common populist topic like tragedies, adventures, gossip, and of course human interest stories. So the penny press made the news and journalism more important, and also caused newspapers to begin to pay more attention to the public they serve. So the first news is transmitted by telegraph. So in the late in 1814, in 1841, Horace started the New York Tribune, and higher circulation meant that they were much more lucrative for advertising. So advertisers were attracted to being able to reach more audience about their product. Ito ay nangangahulugan na ang mga publisher ay hindi umaasa sa mga politician. So by the help of the penny press, new printing presses allowed newspaper to print many more copies much faster. So the yellow journalism and the newspaper wars. So what is this yellow journalism and newspaper wars? Bakit hindi siya black journalism? So in the late 19th century, we see the rise of what was known yellow journalism and the newspaper wars between Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst. So Pulitzer was the owner in the St. Louis Post Dispatch, and he purchased the New York World. So what is this yellow journalism? So yellow journalism was a style of a newspaper reporting that was emphasizing sensationalism over facts. So ito ay ang paggamit ng mga nakakainis na o nakakagulat na balita upang akitin ang mga mambabasa at para pataasin ang circulation. So in 1883, he began filling it with a form of content that echoes much of the stuff. There was the sensationalism, crusading, progressive politics, attention-getting campaigns, and as well as aggressive reporting. So, William Hearst is a former reporter for the World, purchased the New World Morning Journal in 1895. So, kung si Pulitzer ay publisher ng New York World, si William Hearst naman ay publisher ng New York Morning Journal. So from this point, they really fought bitterly to be known as the top newspaper publishers in New York. So the competition between these two publishers was symbolized by the two competing Yellow Kid cartoons. This may be the source of the term yellow journalism. So this yellow journalism which will imply poorly sourced material, misleading headlines, because they competed for the same audience. They each felt the need to outdo the other to attract readers. This competition gave rise to about 5 years of what became known as yellow journalism. So the competition between them is a war to the two leading newspapers in an attempt to increase sales. So they changed the content of the newspapers by adding more sensationalized stories and increasing the use of cartoons and drawings too. And of course, the aim is to attract more readers and to increase sales. So moving on to the 20th century, we see journalism really starts to take its place on the front lines of covering news and presenting it to mass audience in a wide circulation. So we have here the tragedy, disgrace nation. So the year of 1941 to 1973, we can see the tragedy event that was happened, wherein the Pearl Harbor was attacked and John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. The assassination of President Kennedy shows the television strength as a news medium. So the computer age comes to journalism with the first editing terminals that communicate with typesetting rooms. So the reporters and the editors adapt the system, describing the machine as a television screen attached to an electric typewriter keyboard. So this is an evidence in the production of newspaper. Stories can flow efficiently from writers and editors to those who compose the pages, but it is not yet the information age. So the graphic design is at the beginning to move from the paste-up board to the computer screen. So the electronic person-to-person communication is in this. So in 1980, the CNN, or the cable news network, is launched in Atlanta, Georgia. So CNN is the first all-news television channel and the first to provide 24-hour news coverage. So in 1981, President Ronald Reagan was shot and seriously injured, and then the space shuttle Challenger explodes. And as we move into the digital age, some landmark moments stand out in 1998, in which a blogger named Matt Drudge broke the news that President Bill Clinton was having an affair with Monica Lewinsky. So in this event, we see broadcast journalism finding a place as a news source at this time, such as television. So again, if we think about comparing this, how fast this news is spread and how quickly news was distributed in 20th century, within 30 minutes naka-spread na yung mga news or mga pangyayari that time. So in the year of 2001 to 2002, we can see here the terrorist acts on the World Trade Center and the disgraced act of Trent Lott. during the 100th birthday of Strom, in which one reporter named Ed O'Keefe ay ipinost ito sa internet yung nangyaring disgrace. Kaya lumabas ito or naging viral na nakakuha ng attention ng mga tao. So, the last one, moving on to times are changing. Of course, ang oras nga nagbabago, ang mga kagamitan pa kaya natin. So, Huffington Post is founded in 2005. Who is this Huffington? So, he is an American blogger and news writer. So, Huffington Post is also provided news update, and in the mid 2007 it expanded its coverage to include business and entertainment. So, in the ensuing years, the site's focus on news increased, especially in regards to politics. So, the Newsweek and the Daily Beast emerged in 2010. So, the Newsweek is written with a global perspective for global audience. And then the Newsweek offers its readers the content they are looking that suits their lifestyle. While the Daily Beast provides smart what is happening in politics, world affairs, finance, science, culture, and many more. So, in 2011, the New York Times put a paywall in place because the product or the information that they provide has value, and of course we let the readers help the producers by contributing through other finances to help pay for the content the producers are putting in. So the Newsweek announces that it will no longer publish the print edition in 2012. So the time it would stop publishing its print edition and went online only with the Daily Beast, and of course this was the major moment. And in here we can see a well-established news magazine to become an online-only publication. So web-only publishing is recognized as a platform for quality journalism. So, like many other print publications, the New York Times hope to make money by attracting viewers and advertisers. But income from the internet did not offset the loss of print advertising as circulation dropped and readers migrated to the web. So in 2012, the New York Times made more money from the subscriptions than from advertising for the first time. So strong reporting and writing may have viewers willing to subscribe, so they could continue to click to view or to complete that story. So bakit? I think we already know the reason, because we are now in the modernized world wherein we have different technologies. We use it to disseminate or distribute information. So we can see that during these times, journalism is continuously growing and it does not stop. It changes and develops throughout the year. So that's the history of journalism in the world. And here are the references that you can use to understand more. Just click this link and you will be guided. So any questions? So thank you for watching and listening. I hope, or we hope, that you've gained something about our topic. So thank you very much and God bless everyone.